قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة يرد الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلم بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومهم من بعدهم من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذرية في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا فهم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد زل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكس في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أنها قال دخل علي برسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني زعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله إيابة من الزعوف فقال يا فاطمة ائتني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيت بالكساء اليماني فغطيت به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهت تلاله كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله محمد وعلي محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسن عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه، فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمة فؤادي. فقال يا أماه إني شمعت راية طيبة كأنها راية جد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزك أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء وما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل. وقال السلام عليك يا أمه، فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أماه إني شمعت راية طيبة كان راية جد رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين عليه السلام نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختار الله، أتأذن أن يكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافي أمتك أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك بالحسن علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني شمعت راية طيبة كأن راية أخي ابن عم رسول الله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن أن يكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن أن يكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا بنتي يا بزعتي قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ برسول الله بطرف الكساء وما بيد اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك غفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكة يا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرض مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال من جبرائيل يا رب من تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعنى الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرأك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرض مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم محبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لي بإن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم رجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي عليه السلام لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعث بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا محبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة استغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعث بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا محبينا وفي مهموم إلا فرج الله هما ولا مغموم إلا كشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجة إلا وكذا الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بلغ الأولى بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله صلوات. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. صلوات. Mu'mineen, tonight is one of those most blessed nights in the history of mankind, and a night for celebration for those who one way or another have any kind of affiliation with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the character of this personality in different ways in the Quran. The verses which I have read in front of you, for example, in this, Allah talks about لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. He talks about certainly, without any doubt. There is no doubt about it. This is certain. Certain for those who want to believe. Those who don't want to believe, they don't have to believe. For those who believe, Allah says, certainly. You have in this apostle of Allah an excellent exemplar. These are the words of Allah. Excellence, Allah talks of this personality. For him who hopes in Allah. Again, Allah makes this qualification. He is, the Prophet is an excellent exemplar. But everybody is going to accept that? No. Only those who have hopes in Allah and who also believe in the day of Qiyamah, and he who remembers Allah abundantly. These are the three conditions. Everybody will not accept the Prophet, that he is an excellent character. For those who have these conditions, one is they believe in Tawheed, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and have hopes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he believes in the day of hereafter. There's going to be a day of accountability. And therefore, he remembers Allah abundantly. That's why you all are here. You are all here for that purpose. Otherwise, you would have stayed at home. It's a Monday. Tomorrow is a work day. Tomorrow is a day of homework. We tell our children tomorrow is the day of heavy homework. You know what they used to do when we were kids? We were told, if you have to skip your homework tomorrow, do it. Because you will remember this is the day of the Prophet. There are certain sacrifices in life that we have to make. But, well, this is what it is. There Allah talks somewhere else in the Quran. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And that he has been said as a mercy. Mercy for the universe, for everybody. It's not mercy for me and you. He is a mercy for everybody. Why is it? How is he a mercy? Allah then mentions this in the Quran. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقِ الْعَظِيمَ. In him is sublime. It's not just morality. All of these are moral. It's sublime morality in him. Therefore, this is the Prophet. And then, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُبَايِعُونَكَ إِنَّمَا يُبَايِعُونَ اللَّهَ. And those who give their allegiance to him, Allah says, they have given that allegiance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do you understand how important is the personality of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Very briefly, and we have also to talk about our sixth Imam, Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wa salam, who also, and all that has to be done within half an hour, maximum 45 minutes, or else people will start looking at their watches, and when they look at the watches, I know, hello, we better stop now. So I've tried my best to do as much as I can. I won't be able to do any justice, but that you are here and that you are happy that you are here, and that is more important than anything else. And that is why we all have to be happy tonight for this great night, greatest night that we shall at the end mention why it is so great a night tonight. Very briefly, therefore, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the character of the Prophet, on Thursday night we talk about the 20 qualities. There are more of them. We just picked up 20 qualities in the Prophet in dealing with the people that show his eminence, his great character, that he is the greatest personality, that in him is that perfection, that in him is that light of knowledge, that in him is the lessons that we have to get. That we talked about. So today we'll very briefly look at the life of the Prophet. Born 2 months, and when he was born he was an orphan because his father passed away 2 months before he was born. So spent his 8 years of his life, 6 years with his mother, and again mother, and that mother of whom we'll talk at the end. Who is this mother? And his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, up to the age of 8. He was brought up in that environment, and in that early age, these verses of the Quran, that he was that unique personality. Those who had eyes to see could see it. Those who are blind were blind. Those who thought that a prophet becomes a prophet, he becomes a prophet. But those who knew that prophets are born, they are not made, they don't become prophets. They saw this, and those people who saw it were some of his own family members. Abdul Muttalib, for example, his grandfather, saw that this was not an ordinary child. An orphan, yes, but that orphan who lived in such a way that when the time came, no one could say, look at the weakness and say, as a child also there were these weaknesses. No. And this is the reason why Abdul Muttalib, who was the guardian of the community at that time, whenever he was sitting next to Kaaba and there was a carpet that was laid for him, when the Prophet would come, he would come straight on that carpet and he would sit with Hazrat Abdul Muttalib, and Hazrat Abdul Muttalib will give that message to him: this child is not ordinary. Be careful when the time comes to deal with this child. So he was brought up, and there are many miracles that happened during that time, early age, up to the time of 8, and when his grandfather passes away. Then he is handed on to another very, very, very pious, God-fearing person, Hazrat Abu Talib, whom today those who are blind, summun, bukmun, umyun, they still call Hazrat Abu Talib, Madallah is kafir. How blind they are. At that age, Abdul Muttalib looks at his son Abu Talib and said, this is the one, take care of him. And Hazrat Abdul Muttalib took a lot of care about him, and so did Hazrat Abu Talib. And at that age of 8, brought up, how he brought up Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam in a very unique ways. Introduce him when he went all the way on his trading businesses, on the trading, going to Sham and going to all these places. He would take this child, and those who had again eyes, those who are not even Muslims, when they had eyes, they would know that this is not an ordinary child. The purpose was to take him and introduce him to the world. He was a rahmah, so that the rahmah should go all over the places. And as he moved around, clouds would be going with him. Again, signs that this is not an ordinary child. And then there were those skills that he developed as a youth, as a teenager. And things that he did, one of it is, for example, this is the time when they used to have a lot of communal fighting that was going on and on and on for years. Harb al-Fijjar, they were fighting and killing each other. And with the coming of the Prophet, he was one of those persons who brought this fighting to an end. And instead of it, they formed a group of the youths, Hilful Fudul it is called, bringing the community together, giving social work, economic development, so that he himself became a manager, he became a trader, doing work, productive work, so that everybody could belong in a society and could sustain himself and live as an independent person. A young man in his age, 15, 17, 18, taking part in these communal affairs in which he united all the tribes together, Bani Taym, Bani Asad, Bani Zora, Muttal, all these tribes together. And he is one of them who works with them. He teaches them how to live up to that age of 25, when then he gets married to whom? To one of these holiest personality, Hazrat Khadijatul Kubra, and is such that at that time, at that very young age, he becomes the banker. He established himself in such a way that that community of Jahil, of that community of people who knew nothing else but themselves, they gave him these two titles, as-Sadiq and al-Amin. He became the banker of that community, the trustee of all those people kuffar of Makkah. They would leave their belongings, and he established himself so much that when there arose that issue, when the Khana-e-Kaaba had been destroyed and they had been rebuilt it, now they want to put that Hajar Aswad into its place. And there are so many tribes, and everybody wants to prove that that tribe that carries it and puts it inside is the most important one, the most favored one in the eyes of their gods. And therefore there was this dispute, who is going to do it? Finally they said, let's do one thing, let's wait. The person who comes now, we leave that matter in his hands to decide for us. And who is that person? Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallama. That khuluqul azim, when he comes they know it. They look at him and say, yes, he is one person who is as-Sadiq. I mean, all of us trust him unanimously, all of them. We trust him. We know that this man is going to do justice, the young man. And therefore they turn to him, and how are we going to solve this problem? We say, it's very easy. He would listen to what I tell you. Of course we'll listen to you. He takes his abba, he puts it on the floor. He puts the Khana-e-Kaaba, the Aswad, the stone on it. And I said, all tribes, get one representative from all the tribes. All of them. Each one is going to hold on to this. So all of you are participating in this action of putting this Hajar Aswad to its place. They're all happy about it. And therefore, they all lift it. And then what does he do? He takes it, and no one objects. This is history. No one objects. How come now? You are lifting it. He lifts it, and they all are happy about it. And he puts it back in its place. This is this character that Allah mentions here, khuluq al-azim. For those people who even they pretended to be blind, they could see the greatness emanating from this personality. Those 20 qualities that we mentioned on Thursday, they were all coming out of him at that young age, when he was building up, preparing himself to announce his prophethood, not to become a prophet. And therefore, how many years did he spend like that? Up to the age of 40. He lived for 63 years. 2/3 of his life as a prophet, he did not declare that he was a prophet. Prophethood he declared only when he was 40. And that also, before that, he had been isolating himself. He had been spending himself in isolation. During the month of Ramadan, he was fasting. So those people who think that madallah, they are, the Islam that came from Adam preserved up to Nabi Ibrahim, they were all on the millah of Nabi Ibrahim. Therefore, in the month of Ramadan, before Ramadan had become wajib for others, he was fasting. And there were two people who are going to meet him and make his provisions and help me. Who are they? Khadijatul Kubra, and the second one, Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib. Then came that prophethood. What did he do? He called them and they all went there. When he wanted to make that, you see how much he had already established his character. He didn't have anything. As we said, he was a trader. He was working. He didn't have that wealth. Yes, Khadija had the wealth, but he himself, he was to them was like ordinary person who united them. Therefore, he called them all. And what did he tell? If I tell you that behind there are some enemies, would you believe? What did they say? All of them unanimously, yes. Why? Because they knew, they had seen him for 40 years, how he had worked for them and for everybody. And therefore they says, we believe in you. Then he declared his prophethood. And there started this 13 years of most difficult time that he had to spend in Makkah. And again, when they were trying to convince him to leave this message, they used all the tactics. Finally, there was one tactic which again tells us about the character, the unique, the eminence of this personality. When they come and say, you know what? Listen to this. If you want to have one of the most royal girl in the family, we'll offer it to you. She'll become your life partner. If you want a leadership position, you are going to become our leader. And if you want wealth, we're going to make you wealthy. Why did they say this? They knew there was asset. This person is an asset to us. This person is such that whichever woman that we give to him as his wife will be bestly treated by him. He's got an excellent character. And if we make him as our leader, we will prosper. Because he has all the skills. He has the justice in him. We will all benefit from him. And if we want wealth, his wealth will be, there will be justice. There will be equality in distribution. Therefore, this many proposal tells us how great this personality was, even in the eyes of those who were his enemies. More than that, after being there for those 13 years, when he's leaving, when he's going away, what did he tell Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib? One of the things, these are the trustees. Even at that time when they were thinking of killing him, but they knew that all that they had left with him was safe. Whatever we do to him, even if we kill him, we are sure that all the things that we have left under his trusteeship, we are going to get it back. Can you see how much this personality had an impact on those people at that time who were like animals? And if you read the khutbah of Fadak, you will see how Hazrat Fatima al-Zahra mentions this, of the situation in which he became rahmatul lil alameen. How in that situation where these people were filth, there was nothing but filth in them, how did he turn them into Abu Dharr? How did he turn them Hudhaifa? How did he turn all those stars of Islam? And this is what he was. And therefore, all along, they could have found the, and you know how things work these days. People go back and look at your life when you were born. When they want to get after you, you see politics these days. These politicians, some of them were corrupt for a long time. Now they're digging into their lives. This is what the kuffar of Makkah wanted to do if they could do. They would have gone back right into the life of the Prophet and said, today you are talking about this, but that day you did that. This day you did that. No, they look into his life. They could not find even one iota of a mistake that he had done during all that 40 years of his life. The only thing that they could come to was he is Majnoon. An intelligent person is called Majnoon, don't you these days? I don't know. Those are very, very intelligent people sometimes think they are Majnoon. People like Einstein were told to be Majnoon maybe. Later on people find out. So they call him Majnoon, but they not tell him that you had taken liquor yourself, now you are telling us not to do it. That you had yourself bowed in front of these idols, now you are telling us not to bow. He couldn't do it because he hadn't done it. This is the life that he spent. And then there was his 10 years in Medina. That life that we saw yesterday, the impact that they had. And I mentioned one example, and since a lot of you were not here, I will mention it again, that example. The example of that Adi bin Hatim, who was a prince in Yemen. They had ruled in Yemen for many years. When Yemen, they had to run away. When Islam had taken over, he had gone to Syria. His sister had been taken to Medina. The Prophet had made all the arrangement to send her back to Syria. The woman goes and tells his brother, go and have a look at who this person is. You will then understand. He said, why should I do that? He says, do it for your sake, do it. If you don't want to stay there, don't stay there. But once go and see this personality for yourself. Adi therefore comes to Medina. As usual, there are people in the mosque and he is there, he comes there and he meets the Prophet. And guess what? That prince who was so hard-hearted against Islam and all the message, immediately converts. He converts, and finally he becomes one of the most staunch followers of Ahlul Bayt. When Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan later on calls him in his court and says, Ali ibn Abi Talib did not do justice to you in this battle, your 2 sons were killed and Ali's sons are still alive. He turned to him and said, Muawiyah, I did not do justice. Ali was killed, I am still alive. This is the Adi. And people ask, Adi, how come you converted so quickly and so fast? He says 3 things. I was a prince, I was a royal person. I know how people in royalty, the kings, however benign they may be, this is how they live. That when I went there, I saw everybody in the mosque talking with him, he gives time to everybody. Everybody finally finished and they all go. There is this old woman. She comes and she starts talking with him and talks with him and talks so much. And we, all people are very garrulous. When you talk, there comes a time that our children also, grandchildren, Papa, okay, now the rest of it tomorrow. If there is that much respect in our families. Adi says, the more this lady talks, the more he encourages him to talk. And I said, when will this conversation be over? He keeps on talking and she talks and talks and he encourages her. Finally, she is tired and she goes away. Now Adi is left on his own. He said, I couldn't believe. Then I went to him and he welcomed me. He took his abba, he put it on the ground, and he took a quilt full of feathers, put it there, he said, sit on this. And I said, this is the king, this is the man, most powerful person in the world at that time. And he knows who we are. And this is how he treats me. So he sat with me and he treated me so well that I couldn't. When we finish, fine. Have you finished everything? Do you have more to talk? He said, no. Then he says, he looks at me and he tells me my secrets. Things that no one knew. No one had ever, never, ever talked about this to anybody. He knew it all and he told me all of that. He said that was enough for me to make me change and become what I have become. This is those verses which Allah mentions here. This is what we are saying. That once we are here, there is that rahmah. Tonight is that rahmah that is coming to us. And this rahmah, therefore, I will tell you now, I will try to finish as quickly as possible. Don't take your time. This is that rahmah that appears on the day, on the night on which he was born, this night particularly. It's very, very lucky that this year we have been managed to have this night together. Otherwise, situation is such, we either do it before or we do it afterwards, but not on this particular night. This is particular which is described by three A'immah. Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wa salam. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq, Imam Musa ibn Jaffar. These are the four Imams that talk about the greatness of this night, of what happened in this night, talking about what happened to three personalities. They mention three personalities. One is they mention the mother of the Prophet. Remember, her husband had passed away and the child was still in her womb. And therefore he says when that time came for the child to be born, he says Amina bint al-Wahab, the mother of the Prophet. She retired. She went in a separate room. And as she went there in the separate room, she said she closed the door. And then it happened. She began to feel that she is about to deliver the child. And therefore she says that there are certain things that happen at that time. Suddenly, because she is now alone, she feels suddenly there are some spiritual beings in that room. She feels that they are in the forms of light, they are in the forms of birds, and they are forms of ladies, human. These are the huris of Jannah. They introduce themselves. Do not be afraid. You are not alone. We are here to come and welcome this child that is about to be born. This is what the Imams talk about this, that she reports. Then she said there was so much light that she saw that there was a alam, banner between earth and heaven. Then there was so much light that she says that she could see in her vision what was going on outside, right into Baytul Muqaddas and all those places. Now, people in those ages might have thought, how was that possible? You know how it is possible these days. If Allah wishes it, it is there. That you can sit here and you can watch what's happening thousands of miles away with the help of technology. Technology is nothing else but one of the miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for human beings to open their eyes. Then she says that she could not, she had to go in a kind of a swoon. She then says when she opened her eyes, she saw the child already born. One salawat, please. Three characteristics of the child she describes. One is the child was in sujood. When she looks at the child is in sujood. After that, the child raises his hand and he reads qalma. La ilaha illallah. Then she says, and I saw on his shoulders that Muhr Nubuwah, that this is Muhammad, this is the Prophet. She sees it on the shoulders. And she says, this is a child born fully circumcised. This is what the mother talks about this particular night. Now, at the same time, simultaneously, what happens now, Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet, who was considered to be like a hujjah of the time, in the time between the passing away, going away of Nabi Isa up to the birth of the Prophet, there was this hujjah of Allah, and he was one of the hujjah of Allah, Abdul Muttalib. He was at Khana Kaaba on that particular night. He was at Khana Kaaba. And then suddenly he sees something happening. He has a vision. The vision, he sees Khana Kaaba being lifted. It goes right up and then it comes down, and there is a voice that from now onwards I am going to be cleared of all these idols which are in this house. Abdul Muttalib then sees a cloud. That cloud is moving towards the house of where the Prophet's mother was. Abdul Muttalib therefore immediately raises himself and goes fast to see what happens, and he comes to the house of Hazrat Amina at that time. And when he comes there, the child is already born. This is true. Then there is a third personality, Safiya. Safiya is the aunt of the Prophet. Safiya was there. And therefore when all the ladies began, she was the first person who could get there. And now she reports. Her report is the same as what Amina had said. She said, when I went inside, this is what she says. There was so much light and that light was coming from this newly born child. Number one, she says this child was in the state of sujood. Third thing, that this child had raised his hand and was reading Kalma Shahadatain. And then this child, I saw there was this Muhr Nubuwah on his shoulders. And at that time, I wanted to take that pride. I said, let me clean this child. There came a voice, you don't have to clean him. He is born clean. He has been cleaned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before coming on this earth. This is the character of that Prophet. Difficult to believe? You have an option. Everybody has an option. If you want to believe, that's why this verse at the beginning says, if you believe in Allah, if you believe in the day of Qiyamah, these are the things which are difficult to believe with some people. And if you believe in those, then do the zikr of Allah. And Masumin have said, zikr of Allah starts with zikr of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And therefore, one of those Ahlul Zikr is our sixth Imam, Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. We don't have much time to talk about him. Very briefly, a life of 63 or 65 years. Either it was the same as that of the Prophet, 63 years or 65 years, in which this Imam, again, as is in his childhood, like the Prophet, brought up by his mother, and there was a lot of influence from his grandfather. The same thing happened to our sixth Imam, Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. His mother, one of those greatest personalities in history. A greatest personality, so much so that she reports She is one of the reporter about the traditions that she got from her husband, the fifth Imam. This is that particular great things about her. We don't have again time to talk too much about her. Under her influence and the influence of whom? His grandfather. Who is his grandfather? The fourth Imam. He spent 12 years under the guidance of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. The knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to them. One of the sources is it comes from the Imam of the time, to the Imam of the time. 12 years of his life was under his grandfather. And then when his grandfather passes away, there's also his father. And Imam Bakr, we know about the knowledge that he spread, and we don't have much time again to go into all that. Every classes that Imam al-Bakr was running, Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq was there. And there were certain assignments that he would give, Imam al-Bakr would give those assignments based on science, based on so many subjects. Imam as-Sadiq was one of them, one of the students who was a student who was teaching other students about what Imam al-Bakr was teaching, trying to teach to them. This is the time that this Imam spent up to the time when he was 35 years of age, when his father passed away. And from that time, whatever has done, many people would like to mention about the contributions that are made by Imam of Ahlul Bayt. They try to, but however, it's very difficult for them to hide the contribution of Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. Therefore, this is Mazhab of Jaffari. Why it is called Mazhab of Jaffari? Because all that knowledge, all that greatness that was with the Prophet, after the passing away of the Prophet, Imam alayhi salatu wasalam did not have that opportunity of putting that all that knowledge forth. They could not. It was illegal, punishable by death, if anyone during the time of the first two Khalifas and the third one mentioned about the merits of Ahlul Bayt. This is history. History. Islam had totally been overtaken. The person who managed to bring it all back to the world and see the greatness of this religion was Jaffar as-Sadiq and Muhammad al-Baqir. Therefore, there is a lot to be done. I was checking some of the Ahlul Sunnah sources just to check, and they all, at least in two cases, they admit it. One, they say Abu Hanifa, the Hanafi, and Maliki, these were the two students of Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq. And they admit that in their way and in their understanding, there was no other person who was as great in knowledge in every way than Jaffar as-Sadiq. This is that Imam Jaffar as-Sadiq, for whom tonight is also the day, the night of celebration. Don't have much to say, but the advice that he has given for me and for you, I'll mention those points, and inshallah the majlis will be over if you read one salawat. Summary of those 20 things that the Prophet, that Allama Majlisi mentioned about the Prophet. I summarize this in 4 things that Imam said. Number 1, he says, if you want to have complete faith in Allah, as mentioned in those verses, then you have to develop 4 characteristics in you. What are they, Ibn Rasulillah? Number 1, good behavior. Your behavior, make sure your behavior is such. What is that behavior? You already mentioned this. And then, now, the second thing is, do not estimate yourself high. For whatever you do, do not get into that stage where you think, oh, you know who I am? You know, I am. Do not get into that stage, Imam says. Don't do that. Then Imam says, when you talk, your speech control, have a complete on your tongue. When you talk, think about what you are saying. And make sure that what you say, you know what you are talking about. This is a subject by several times. And then he says that person whose personal wealth benefits people. Whatever that he has, people benefit from that. Then he gives these two warnings. Number one, don't give charity in public. When you give charity, don't give it in public to get praise. If you give in public for the sake of giving, that's fine, that's very good, that's what it should be. But if you give it so that you should be recognized, you should be acknowledged, you should be praised, then Imam says, so be it. Therefore, on the day of Qiyamah, there is no reward for you. This is what you wanted, this is what you get. People will praise you, people will acknowledge you, people will stand for you, people will do all for that charity that you have given. Imam warns, do not do that. Then Imam goes further on and he says, if your right hand gives charity, your left hand must not know. If your right hand gives in charity, your hand must not know. For if you give for Allah in secrecy, Allah will make it public. And when Allah makes it public, and when then people come and hug you, that is what you deserve. We don't say those who give, no, give. And it's your right that you have sacrificed, and Allah is going to recognize it. People will come to you. Don't go after. They will come and they will hug you, and then you will take it because you deserve it. These are the advice. There are so many other things that the Imam said, but again, time restriction, I don't want to take more time. Also, therefore, tonight is one of those greatest nights. And Andy and Rubina, you have made a very right choice. You have decided to have your engagement mentioned here on this very, very great night. And therefore, we all pray that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do the best to Andy, your brother in faith, and Rubina, you are daughter of our community. And for you all, we are here, we are praying for you, that may you have a long and healthy life when you get married and have as many children as Abdul Muttalib had. What is it, how many children did he have? 12? 20? I don't know how many it is. But Alhamdulillah, so with that, inshallah, tonight is therefore a great night for us to celebrate. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dr. Dungersi, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight's Surah Yasin has been sponsored for the Ithal Thawab of the Marhumeens that are displayed on the screen. Let us all recite Surah Fatiha for all Marhumeen. Bismillah. On behalf of the Sijni Managing Committee, we are happy to announce the nod of Andy Nagzan, son of Gaukara Nagzan and late Rajpati Mira Kisan, to Sister Rubina Ratani, daughter of Iqbal and Sayyida Ratani. On behalf of the Sijni Managing Committee, we would like to congratulate both families, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always keep the couple happy. On Thursday, we will be having our Shabi Jummah program starting at 8:15 p.m. Followed by Friday, we'll have Salat al-Jummah starting at 12:15 p.m. with Dua Nudba. On behalf of the Sijni Managing Committee, we will be having a special meeting on Saturday, October 14th at 4 p.m. to review our expansion plans for Al-Mahdi Center and current status of our Woodside, Jericho, and Uniondale properties. We are encouraging all Mu'mineen to attend as we are having an in-detail presentation as to come forward for our Hicksville Center to address the township variance. Lastly, please join me in reciting the ayah of Amma Yujib 5 times for all those who are sick here and around the world. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustaraiza da'u wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात हेलो जो इश्क़े मोहम्मद का तलबगार नहीं है, जो इश्क़े मोहम्मद का तलबगार नहीं है, हरगिज़ वो बशर साहिब किरदार नहीं है, हरगिज़ वो बशर साहिब किरदार नहीं है, जो इश्क़े मोहम्मद का तलबगार नहीं है। सौदा है दिलों का यहाँ, चेहरे ना सवारो, सौदा है दिलों का यहाँ, चेहरे ना सवारो, ये शहरे नबी का मैशर बाजार नहीं है, जो इश्क़े मोहम्मद का तलबगार नहीं है। हमको क़यामत में बचा लेंगे मोहम्मद, हमको क़यामत में बचा लेंगे मोहम्मद, वो लोग दरे जिनका मददगार नहीं है, जो इश्क़े मोहम्मद का तलबगार नहीं है। एक दुरूद भेज दीजिएगा मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। या इमाम जाफर सादिक, या इमाम जाफर सादिक, या इमाम जाफर सादिक, या इमाम जाफर सादिक। रब की जो पहचान है, दीन की जो शान है, खल्के खुदा पर ये सब आपका एहसान है। बाखुदा है ये करम, बाखुदा है ये करम तेरा जो हम सबको मिला दीन खुदा। आप पर दुरूद और सलाम, या इमाम जाफर सादिक, या इमाम जाफर सादिक, या इमाम जाफर सादिक। मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलवात। Yeah, good.
Salawat. This is a pretty popular and well-known nasheed, so feel free to recite along.
يا من صليت بكل الأنبياء، يا من في قلبك رحمة للناس،
يا من ألفت قلوبا في الإسلام، يا حبيبي يا شفيعي يا رسول الله.
بأمي وأبي
فديتك سيدي، صلاة وسلام
عليك يا نبي
حبيبي يا محمد، أتيت بالسلام والهدى محمد. حبيبي
يا محمد،
يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد،
يا من حليت حياتنا بالإيمان، يا من بجمالك علمت الإحسان،
يا من نورت قلوبنا بالقرآن، يا حبيبي يا شفيعي يا رسول الله.
بأمي وأبي
فديتك سيدي، صلاة وسلام
عليك يا نبي
حبيبي يا محمد، أتيت بالسلام والهدى محمد. حبيبي
يا محمد،
يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد. صلى الله على
خاتم الأنبياء، خاتم الأنبياء
محمد، محمد رحمة للعالمين، رحمة للعالمين. محمد، محمد رحمة للعالمين، رحمة للعالمين محمد محمد رحمة للعالمين رحمة
للعالمين حبيبي يا محمد أتيت بالسلام والهدى محمد حبيبي
يا محمد
يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد حبيبي يا محمد أتيت بالسلام والهدى محمد حبيبي
يا محمد
يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد يا رحمة للعالمين يا محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
والسلام عليك يا رسول
محمد وآل محمد. है पांच और वनो मिल चार दाहतान अहमद वाली ज़हरा बहसान शबीर से ले ताइमाम ज़मान शबीर से ले एक एक पे सदा सलवात पढ़ो सलवात सलवात के हो स्पेनी सारे गोहर जो नबी है बुलान वे सलवात सलवात व सलाम या इमाम ज़मान फरमा
Inshallah, I'll be reciting the ziyarat of Imam Ali that is recommended to be recited on the 17th of Rabiul Awal. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu ala Rasulillah. Assalamu ala khiratillah. Assalamu ala al-Bashir al-Nadhir. As-Siraj al-Munir. Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. السلام على الطهر الطاهر السلام على العلم الزاهر السلام على المنصور المؤيد السلام على أبي القاسم محمد ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام على أنبياء الله المرسلين وعباد الله الصالحين السلام على ملائكة الله الحافين بهذا الحرم وبهذا الضريح اللائذين به السلام عليك يا وسي الأوصياء السلام عليك يا إماد الأتقياء السلام عليك يا ولي الأولياء السلام عليك يا سيد الشهداء السلام عليك يا آية الله العظماء السلام عليك يا خامس أهل العباء السلام عليك يا قائد الغر المهجلين الأتقياء السلام عليك يا عصمة الأولياء. السلام عليك يا زين الموحدين النجباء. السلام عليك يا خالص الأخلاء. السلام عليك يا والد الأئمة الأمناء. السلام عليك يا صاحب الحوض وهامل اللواء. السلام عليك يا قسيم الجنة ولظى. السلام عليك يا من شرفت به مكة ومنى. السلام عليك يا بحر العلوم وكنف الفقراء. السلام عليك يا من ولد في الكعبة وزوج في السماء بسيدة النساء وكان شهودها الملائكة الأصفياء. السلام عليك يا مصباح الضياء. السلام عليك يا من خصه النبي بجزيل الحباء. السلام عليك يا من بات على فراش خاتم الأنبياء ووقاه بنفسه شر الأعداء. السلام عليك يا من ردت له الشمس فسما شمعون الصفا. السلام عليك يا من أنجى الله سفينة نوح باسمه واسم أخيه حيث التطم الماء حولها وطما. السلام عليك يا من طاب الله به وبأخيه على آدم إذ غوى. السلام عليك يا فلك النجاة الذي من ركبه نجاه ومن تأخر عنه هوى. السلام عليك يا من خاطب الثعبان وذئب الفلا. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله على من كفر وأناب. السلام عليك يا إمام ذوي الألباب. السلام عليك يا معدن الحكمة وفصل الخطاب. السلام عليك يا من عنده علم الكتاب. السلام عليك يا ميزان يوم الحساب. السلام عليك يا فاصل الحكم الناطق بالصواب. السلام عليك أيها المتصدق بالخاتم في المحراب. السلام عليك يا من كفى الله المؤمنين القتال به يوم الأحزاب. السلام عليك يا من أخلص لله الوحدانية وأناب. السلام عليك يا قاتل خيبر وقالئ الباب. السلام عليك يا من دعاه خير الأنام للمبيت على فراشه فأسلم نفسه للمنية وأجاب. السلام عليك يا من له طوبى وحسن مآب ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا ولي اسمة الدين ويا سيد السادات. السلام عليك يا صاحب المعجزات. السلام عليك يا من نزلت في فضله سورة العاديات. السلام عليك يا من كتب اسمه في السماء على السرادقات. السلام عليك يا مظهر العجائب والآيات. السلام عليك يا أمير الغروات. السلام عليك يا مخبرا بما غبر وبما هو آت. السلام عليك يا مخاطب ذئب الفلوات. السلام عليك يا خاتم الحاصى ومبين المشكلات. السلام عليك يا من عجبت من هملاته في الوغى ملائكة السماوات. السلام عليك يا من نجى الرسول فقدم بين يدي نجواه الصدقات. السلام عليك يا والد الأئمة بررة السادات ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا طالي المبعوث. السلام عليك يا وارث علم غير خير موروث ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا إمام المتقين. السلام عليك يا غياث المكروبين. السلام عليك يا إسمة المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا مظهر البراهين. السلام عليك يا طه وياسين. السلام عليك يا حبل الله المتين. السلام عليك يا من تصدق في صلاته بخاتمه على المسكين. السلام عليك يا قارئ الصخرة عن فم القليب ومظهر الماء المعين. السلام عليك يا عين الله الناظرة ويده الباسطة ولسانه المعبر عنه في بريته أجمعين. السلام عليك يا وارث علم النبيين ومستودع علم الأولين والآخرين وصاحب لواء الحمد وساقي أوليائه من حوض خاتم النبيين. السلام عليك يا يعسوب الدين وقائد الغر المهجلين ووالد الأئمة المرضيين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على اسم الله الرذي ووجه المضي وجنبه القوي وصراطه السوي. السلام على الإمام التقي المخلص الصفي. السلام على الكوكب الدري. السلام على الإمام أبي الحسن علي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى وأعلام التقى ومنار الهدى وذوي النهى وكهف الورى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على نور الأنوار وحجة الجبار ووالد الأئمة الأطهار وقسيم الجنة والنار المخبر عن الآثار المدمر على الكفار مستنقذ الشيئة المخلصين من عظيم الأوزار. السلام على المخصوص بالطاهرة التقية ابنة المختار المولود في البيت ذي الأسطار المزوج في السماء بالبرة والطاهرة الرذية المرضية والوالدة الأئمة الأطهار ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون وعليه يعرضون وعنه يسألون. السلام على نور الله الأنوار وضياء الله وضياء الأزهار ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا ولي الله وحجته وخالصة الله وخاصته. أشهد أنك يا ولي الله وحجته لقد جاهدت في سبيل الله حق جهاده واتبعت منهاج رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وحللت حلال الله وحرمت حرام الله وشرعت أحكامه وأقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وجاهدت في سبيله صابرا ناصحا مجتهدا محتسبا عند الله عظيم الأجر حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله من دفعك عن حقك وأزالك عن مقامك ولعن الله من بلغه ذلك فرضي به. أشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني ولي لمن والاك وعدو لمن عاداك. السلام عليك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي الشهيد بكربلاء. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على